It is London, 1908. A forgotten plate sits on a bench. A blue-green bloom spreads across it. Around it forms a perfect halo where nothing deadly can live. Fleming looks once, and the room feels quiet. He lifts the lid and leans in. Staphylococcus crowd the Agar-like grey islands, but near the mold, the shorelines vanish. He notes the edge, the clarity of the kill zone, the strange calm around a messy intruder. He isolates the fungus, labels it a Penicillin, and tests the broth that seeps from it. Drops fall onto cultures of strep and staph. Life recedes from the ring. The lab is ordinary. Wooden benches, glass flasks, a cracked window that lets in summer spores. Fleming already knows nature hides defenses in small places. Lysozyme taught him that. He photographs the inhibition zone and tries to pull the active juice into something stable. Heat ruins it. Time ruins it. He publishes in 1929 and moves on to other work because the tools are not ready. And Britain is falling for synthetic sulfur drugs that look cleaner and easier to ship. Hospitals still turn cuts into funerals. A scratch on the hand becomes red streaks that climb the arm. Pneumonia steals breath in quiet wards. Childbirth infections slip past prayers. The obstacle isn't the idea. The obstacle is chemistry, storage, and yield. Penicillin refuses to crystallize on command. It refuses to sit still. Without a way to make it reliable, it stays a curiosity, not a cure. Across the 1930s, the air thickens with war. Gas masks hang on pegs. Blackout curtains gather dust. In Oxford, pathologist Howard Florey builds a team that studies natural antibacterials with a practical eye. Ernst Chain, a biochemist who loves difficult molecules, digs through journals and circles Fleming's paper. Norman Heatley, an experimentalist with an engineer's hands, builds strange glassware to solve stubborn bottlenecks. They decide to start where London stopped. They will not just observe penicillin. They will capture it, clean it, and see if it saves a living body. Basement rooms hold makeshift incubators, shallow vessels, and a wartime mindset of thrift. The plan is simple, the execution cruel. Grow the mold on flat surfaces with plenty of oxygen, keep it cool, so the drug survives, and pull the active compound out before it collapses back into nothing. Every day becomes a race between decay and discovery. They improvise, bedpans become trays. Milk bottles become culture flasks. Heatley sketches a flow where acid pulls penicillin into solvent, and then back into water. Each pass concentrating activity without cooking it. The space smells like yeast and amyl acetate. Glass funnels glint under cheap bulbs. Notes pile up. The team pushes the work from Petri dish to test tube to something that might matter in a ward. They plan an animal test because paper claims never move the needle in real hospitals. The goal is stark. Prove that the mold's whisper can outpace a lethal infection in a warm, living system. On the day they choose, nothing about the room suggests a revolution. It looks like a small workshop stacked with trays and hope. Night in the lab, two groups in a controlled model are set up. One receives the new extract. One does not. Under a desk lamp, the team records movement and behavior. By morning, the treated group returns to normal activity. The effect is clear. They scale tests and learn fast. The extract doesn't hold up in the digestive tract, and the body clears it quickly, so real therapy will need careful dosing schedules. Heat and strong light reduce potency, so cool rooms and tight timing become standard. The space turns into a precise assembly line of trays, funnels, and logbooks. Early 1941 brings a severe case from a small cut that will not calm down. Other options have failed. The team begins carefully supervised dosing through a line. Signs improve: color, alertness, appetite. To stretch their tiny reserves, they recover and purify material wherever possible and cycle it back into the plan. Each vial buys a little more time. Then supplies run out, progress reverses. The takeaway is firm. The approach works, but production must catch up. Rationing tightens across Britain. Basic vessels and chemicals are scarce. The team can prove the principle, but cannot build an industrial pipeline during air raids. The next move is obvious. They need partners with fermenters, food science know-how, and a steady stream of affordable nutrients. In 1941, they traveled to Peoria, Illinois, and step into a US lab built around fermentation. Nearby mills supply corn, steep liquor, rich feedstock for microbes. Andrew Moyer's group rewrites the growth recipe, tunes aeration, and watches yields climb. The broth foams. Charts rise. Momentum returns. Mary Hunt, a technician with a habit of scouting spoiled fruit, walks in with a spotted cantaloupe glowing with blue-green bloom. The lab cultures the rind. The strain outperforms the old ones. A produce market cantaloupe changes the math. One rind carries brighter mold and higher yield. The team banks it as NRRL 1951 and pushes it through mutation and selection to make it even stronger. From kitchen scraps to war stockpiles, factories now have something worth scaling. Engineers move from shallow trays to agitated tanks that flood the fungus with oxygen. Lines of stainless steel hiss and thrum. Foam breakers churn. Sampling ports click open. What took months in ceramic pans now takes days in steel. Steel, tanks, hum. Trains leave at night. By June 1944, medics unzip cases that a year earlier would have been empty. The War Production Board forces competitors to cooperate. Recipes circulate. Failures are shared as fast as successes. Pfizer bets big on deep tank fermentation in Brooklyn and keeps the vessels running around the clock. Every iteration trades a small gain in yield for thousands more vials down the line. The project turns into choreography. Biologists feeding chemists, chemists feeding engineers, engineers feeding medics. Proof arrives at a hospital bed in Connecticut. Ann Miller is dying of septicemia after a miscarriage. Doctors secure a precious tablespoon of penicillin, close to half the national supply. They inject. Fever breaks within a day. Appetite returns. Nurses stop whispering. The case moves manufacturers as much as it moves molecules. It shows the country this isn't a laboratory legend. It is a lever that can pull patients back. If this blend of accident and grit hooks you, tap like and watch the full story, so more people find these hidden in plain night's breakthroughs. Back in Peoria, technicians plate strain after strain and blast them with X-rays or chemicals to trigger mutations that yield more drug. Medium recipes shift again. Corn steep liquor stays central, but trace minerals and anti-foam agents get tuned like dials on a radio. Quality teams standardize potency tests because doctors need doses they can trust. Supply curves finally outpace infections. The pipeline stretches from a melon crate and a corn mill to frontline aid stations. In Britain and North Africa, surgeons irrigate ragged wounds that would have turned black and fatal. In Sicily and Italy, field hospitals write fewer letters to families. Numbers do not capture the feeling of walking into a ward that smells less like rot and more like hope. Industry solves the last bottlenecks with true scale. Pfizer's deep tanks in Brooklyn become a template. Others copy. By early 1944, a single plant's daily output can eclipse what the entire country made the year before. Warehouses stack crates of brown bottles. Cold rooms fill. Logistics teams learn how to move a fragile drug in a violent world without losing it to heat or time. On the eve of D-Day, medics inventory their kits. Penicillin sits next to tourniquets and morphine. During the Normandy campaign, compound fractures and dirty abdominal wounds no longer predict a funeral with the same certainty. Evac hospitals write new protocols. Surgeons save limbs that would have been sacrificed. The drug shortens stays and lowers deaths from sepsis so reliably that commanders factor it into planning like fuel or rations. Back in Oxford, Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin uses X-ray crystallography to reveal penicillin's structure. The image explains its power and fragility. A tight beta-lactam ring, primed to snap bacterial cell walls, and just as ready to break under heat or acid. Structure brings discipline. Chemists refine purity. Manufacturers lock in quality. Doctors get consistency. In 1945, the Nobel Committee recognizes Fleming for the observation, and Florian Chain for the translation into cure. Credit lands on curiosity, teamwork, and scale. The antibiotic era opens like a door. Newspapers call penicillin a wonder drug, and for once, the headline is accurate. The story keeps its shadows. Bacteria adapt. Overuse and misuse drive resistance. Hospitals must protect last-line drugs and pay for the slow, expensive search for new ones. Yet the core lesson stays warm. A messy bench, a careful eye, a willingness to revisit a dusty paper, and a factory that learns faster than yesterday can turn chance into a standard of care. Breakthroughs still start with mistakes we choose to notice. A data scientist spots a strange blip in server logs and maps a new fraud pattern. A climate researcher sees an odd satellite artifact and builds a faster wildfire risk model. A materials engineer watches an unexpected crack and invents a tougher composite. Accidents begin the sentence. Curiosity, craft, and scale write the period.